Hello everybody, thank you for stopping by my channel. Today we will not be cooking, we'll be doing something else. But before I share with you what we're about to do, I want to take this time to just appreciate all of you. Those of you who have subscribed to my channel, the regular viewers, those of you who share the videos. It means a lot that I'm doing something that a handful of you appreciate. I'm grateful. And if this is your first time being here, please subscribe to the channel and hit on the notification button. Okay, look, I'm very excited to share this with you. This is something which I am so passionate about. I mean, cooking happened later. What I'm about to share with you today is me. This is what I do. This is what I can do in my sleep, and I will always love doing this. And it's my love for sewing. I've been sewing for I can't even remember when I started sewing, but I know I used to sew my school uniforms. My mom taught me how to sew my school uniforms, and she used to supply school uniforms in the school I went to, in the primary school I went to. So we were always sewing at home. There were always others, people wanting to get their uniforms done for their kids, or somebody just wanting to sew a dress. So I started sewing quite early, and later on I developed a passion for fashion designing. That was when I was much older. I developed a passion for fashion designing, and I pursued it for a while. I enjoyed it. I still miss it, and I'm considering getting back into it. But today, this is what we're going to do. And don't get nervous. This is something anybody can do. It's more of a DIY sewing. All you need to do is, of course, you need to get a sewing machine for yourself. I'll be doing a reconstruction of this dress. This is a dress I bought for my daughter in Zara, but it is big for her. So I want to do a copy of this dress, something she can wear now. Because we don't have a pattern, how will I define a pattern to you? Okay, a pot is to a cook, as a pattern is to a sewer. What I mean is, without a pot you cannot cook. So it's the same thing with the pattern. Without a pattern you cannot sew. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it does in my head. But we are going to use this as a pattern. So we are going to trace it out and use it to sew the dress. This is the fabric I'll be using. It's 100% cotton fabric. So you can see it has two variations. They are the little roses, and then you have the bigger roses. What I'm going to do is I'll fold it in half, just a little part of it, like this. And then I'll take my dress, look for the frontal part of the dress. This is the front. So the dress is like this. This is the front. I'm going to fold the front into two, like this. And it has to be two equal halves. So I'm going to fold it like this, making sure that all the seams meet before I cut it out on the fabric. I'll be using a fabric marker to trace the dress. This is water erasable, so when you wash it, it goes off. So don't be scared to use it. I'll follow this line. And then I'll come to the point where the bustier ends, and I'll draw a straight line across as well. So I'll do it like this. and this is it. So when you open it up, it looks like this. That's the bustier part of the dress, like this. I'm going to cut another piece of this, which I'll use to line the dress. Right now we are going to move on to the gathered part of a dress. In order to gather any fabric, you have to cut a long strip of fabric, and then when you pull your gathers in, it gives you the measurements required. So what I mean is, if your waistline, for example, is 30 inches and you want to gather the waistline of your dress, you're going to cut a strip of fabric which is, let's say, about 60 inches, so that when you bring the gathers in, it's going to be 30 inches, which is the measurement of your waistline. I hope I'm making sense. So in this case, the measurement of this distance from here to here is 13.5 inches. So 13.5 inches for the front, 13.5 inches for the back. 13.5 inches multiplied by 2 will give you 27 inches. Yeah, will give you 27 inches. So 27 inches is the measurement required for this area. So I've cut out 2 separate strips of fabric. This is one, this is another one, and this is what I'll be using. I'll be using both of them actually for the gathers. Now, the total length of the longer one, that is, if I could open it up for you to see, is 60 inches, while the total length of the shorter one is 35 inches, and that is the area you will gather to fit into the bodice of the dress. This is the front part of the dress which we had cut, and if you remember, we have 2 of them here. We have 2 of them. So we are going to put the right sides together. This is one right side. When I say right sides together, I mean the right side is touching the other right side. So we're going to put them together, and we're going to sew all round, leaving this bottom free. So the stitch is going to run from here to here to the top, the other armhole, and then we leave the bottom free. I am done, and as you can see, I sewed all the angles, but I left the bottom open, and I've done the same for the back. For this piece, this is the back, this is the front. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it over to the right side. Before I turn my fabric on the right side, I'm going to take my scissors and make little cuts just before the seam line. This is the seam line, right, where I ran the stitch. So I'm just going to make little cuts all round. Nothing too deep. You don't want to cut the stitch you made. This is going to make it's going to give your dress a smooth finish when you turn it over to the right side and iron it. It's going to make it look smooth and avoid any creases, unnecessary creases, which are not supposed to be on the dress. So right now I'm making the cuts all round, and then I'll turn it over onto the right side. I'm done making the cuts. This is what I'll do. When you turn it over, this is how it looks like. And then I'm going to iron it all round so it's smooth. This is what I'll be doing for the front and the back of the dress. The front and back of the bodice part of the dress have been ironed. As you can see, well ironed on both sides. So right now we are going to move on to making our gathers. When making gathers on a fabric, the first thing you have to do is you have to change the setting of your machine. So we are going to set our machine to the longest stitch, which is on number 4. We'll turn our knob. You turn your knob to number 4. In order to do your running stitches, they have to be wide apart. If you turn your knob to the lower numbers, the stitches are very tight and then you will not be able to pull the gathers. So when you turn it to the highest number, then you have very loose stitches, which makes it easier for you to pull your gathers. This is the first strip of fabric, and in order to do the gathers, I'll be sewing 2 parallel stitches here, and of course there'll be 2 parallel running stitches, which will make it easier for us to pull the gathers. Let me show you how it's done. So I put my machine foot down and then I start sewing. As much as possible, you want the stitch to be straight. In order to make your gathers, you need to hold on to some thread here and then you push your fabric behind. So you want to make sure you leave enough that you can hold on to. So I'm going to be cutting it somewhere here. And then I'm going to move on to do the next stitch. Remember, I told you you'll be doing 2 parallel stitches. So after the first stitch has been done, you're going to make sure you have some space between the first and second stitch. So I'll be doing the second stitch next to the first stitch, but making sure they don't touch. There's some space in between them. We are done with our 2 parallel stitches, running stitches, and right now we are going to pull our gathers. In order to do that, you're going to lift the 2 top threads like this, and then you pull. You hold on to the 2 of them and then you pull. So this is how you do your gathers. While you're pulling your thread, you're pushing the fabric. So you hold your thread firmly and then you push your fabric behind like this. When you're almost halfway done with your gathers, you have to make sure you do gathers on the other side of the fabric as well. So you go to the stitches on the opposite side, you lift the two top stitches like you did before, and then you start your gathers here as well. So you hold on to your thread and then you push your fabric behind. Till you meet in the middle. I am done with the gathers on the bottom tier. What I mean is this part, the bottom part, I am done with the gathers. Right now I'm going to attach the bottom part to this part. That is, I'll be attaching this to the bottom of the top tier. So this is my top tier. I've done my running stitches at the top, and this is the bottom of the top tier, no running stitches. I'm going to attach it to the gathered part of the bottom tier. So what I'm going to do is I'll take my pins and I'll just pin it all through first to make sure that they are even, that my gathers fit perfectly into the measurements of the top tier. So I'm going to pin it all through right now. If you notice, there's some excess fabric here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relax my gathers a little. So I'm done, and I just want to give you an idea of what you have. This is what it's going to look like. So this is your bottom tier and this is the top, which will be attached on the bodice. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the gathers as well on the top tier, that is here. But you will not have many gathers because I didn't cut a lot of excess fabric. Remember, the measurements we had was 27 and the length of the top tier here is just 35. So we'll not have a lot of gathers to pull. So I'm going to pick up the top two tails of thread and I'll do the same I did with the other fabric. but this time they are going to be very light. You have really few gathers. It won't be packed, just so that it can fit properly into the bodice part of the dress. So I'll continue pulling till I'm satisfied, till it fits the measurements of the bodice part of the dress. And I'll go to the other side, pick up the 2 top tail thread, and I start with the gathers as well. Right now we're going to put together the different parts of the dress, and I'm going to start stitching the area which I pinned. And while I stitch, I'll take off the pins. Doing this, you have to be very careful so a pin doesn't prick you. Right now, I'm going to join the front bodice to the back bodice. So what I'll do is I'll be joining both of them at the armhole. This is my front bodice and this is my back bodice. I'm going to open them up like this, making sure that the right sides meet each other. So this is the right side of the back bodice, this is the right side of the front bodice. You want to make sure that the right sides meet each other, and then we are going to run a stitch across here. So I'll be using a pin to make sure that they hold together and to make sure that my seam line meets. So I'll pin it across and then I run my stitch. And my stitch is going to be half an inch in to the bodice. So run my stitch. I'm going to be running my stitch across. I'm going to show you what this does to your garment. When you open it up, this is the back, this is the front. Watch this. You see, you've joined them at the armhole and they have a very professional finish, because what many people do is they just put this together front and back and then they run a stitch. So what you do is you have this unraveled fabric at the edge of your armhole, and that is not professional at all. I know this is sewing 101, but it's important that, I mean, you want to have a garment with a professional finish. So we are going to do the same on the other side. The front and the back have been attached. I'll be using my Overlock machine or my serger. Some people call it Overlock, some people call it serger, some people call it a zigzag machine. It serves the same purpose, but what I'll be using it for is I'll run an overlock stitch here, just in order to get rid of all of this unraveling fabric, because if I leave it the way it is, the dress is not going to have a professional finish at all. There'll just be a lot of fabric frailing, and we don't want that. So I'm going to run an overlock stitch here. Now, if you don't have an overlock machine, don't worry. Every sewing machine, a normal sewing machine, has an overlock stitch. So you can as well use your overlock stitch on your normal sewing machine. The reason I'm using this is because it's very fast, and it's true that the stitches look better than the stitches on the normal sewing machine, and it does the job quicker for me. But it's not obligatory to have an overlock machine unless you're sewing professionally. We have the gathered part of the dress, and this is the bodice of the dress. I just wanted to put it on the work table and show you, so you have an idea of what the final outcome is. We are going to join the bodice of the dress to the gathered part of the dress here. What I did was I measured the bodice, and then I added 1 inch here. So the gathered part of the dress is the measurement of the bodice plus 1 inch, and the extra inch is sewing allowance. That is what you sew to close it here, as you can see. And then I did ropes, which I'm going to put at the 4 ends of the bodice, 2 in front, 2 at the back. So the ropes are going to be tied at the shoulder point of the dress. So you have 2 ropes in front, 2 ropes behind, which will be tied on the shoulder.